I want to tell you about the moment my life split clean in two. The moment I realized everything people thought they knew about me was wrong, including the people who thought they owned me. It happened in a place where no one expects truth to show up: a crowded street market that smelled like dust oil and overripe fruit. I was there because my company was sponsoring a small community event. Nothing flashy, just cameras, handshakes, and a speech I'd given so many times I could say it half asleep. And then I saw her, on her knees, clothes torn, hands shaking, holding two little boys like they were the only solid thing left in the world. People were walking past her like she was invisible. I almost did too, until one of the boys looked up. Same eyes as mine, same jaw, same expression I see in the mirror when I'm tired and angry and trying not to show it. My chest tightened, my breath caught, and for a second I honestly thought I was losing my mind, because the woman begging on the ground was supposed to be dead. Yeah, that kind of dead. Funeral paperwork tears all of it. And those boys were supposed to never exist. 5 years earlier, I was a different man, or maybe the same man who just hadn't been tested yet. I had money status, a family name that opened doors before I knocked. People assumed confidence meant strength, and I let them. My wife, Lena, was the opposite of me. Quiet, observant, the kind of person who noticed who didn't get invited to the table. She used to tell me, half joking, half serious, that power makes people lazy, especially when it comes to truth. I didn't listen the way I should have. When she disappeared after that accident, I accepted the version handed to me. A rainy night, a car in a river. No body but official signatures, calm doctors and relatives telling me to stop asking questions. I was grieving, and grief is convenient for liars. I buried myself in work, built bigger deals, smiled for magazines while my house stayed silent. At night, I'd sit with a glass I never drank from, replaying her voice in my head, wondering what I missed. Turns out I missed everything. Back in the market, the woman noticed me staring. Her face went pale, and before I could say a word, she grabbed the boys and ran. Not dramatic, not screaming, just fast and desperate, like someone who's practiced disappearing. My security chief leaned in and asked if I was okay. I told him I was fine, which was a lie so obvious I almost laughed. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept seeing those kids' faces, the way one stood slightly in front of her like a shield, the way the other clung to her arm. I remembered arguments I'd brushed off, comments from my family about bloodlines and control, and a sick thought finally finished forming in my head. What if Lena didn't die? What if she was erased? I started digging quietly. Hospital records, phone logs, payments that didn't match invoices, a death certificate that looked too clean, too fast. When you're powerful, people assume you won't look too closely at your own shadow. They were wrong. The deeper I went, the uglier it got. A doctor who suddenly bought land. A private clinic paid in cash. Security reports that vanished. And then I found her again, not in a market this time, but in a small church on the edge of the city. No cameras, no entourage. Just her, the boys, and a silence so heavy it felt like a warning. I stepped inside and said her name. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The boys looked at me like I was a puzzle they hadn't decided how to solve. I asked one question, the only one that mattered. "Were you alive when they buried you?" She looked at me, eyes steady, and said, "You tell me." That hurt more than any accusation. She told me everything. Or maybe she let the truth speak while she filled in the spaces. The night of the rain. My cousin offering to drive her home, smiling too sweetly. The argument in the car. The swerve. The water. Waking up broken and hearing my stepmother calmly say she'd be declared dead like it was a scheduling issue. Lena survived because strangers pulled her from the river and an old woman hid her behind a market stall. She gave birth in secret. Never registered the boys. Never said my name. Because she knew the people who erased her would finish the job if they found her children. While she was surviving, I was trusting the wrong people and calling it loyalty. When word started leaking that I was asking questions, the attacks came fast. Rumors about her mental state. Stories about scams and extortion. Questions about whether the boys were really mine. Classic move. Discredit the truth before it speaks. I sat across from Lena as she listened to all of it with a calm that scared me more than anger. She said, "This is what they do. They make you doubt yourself until silence feels safer." That's when I realized the fight wasn't just about the past. It was about whether I was going to hide again. So I didn't. I stepped in front of cameras and said words men like me are trained never to say. I was wrong. I failed. I trusted power over people. My wife survived an attempt on her life. My sons grew up without me. Members of my own family were involved. I filed charges against them by name. You could feel the room crack when I said it. Evidence followed. Confessions. Witnesses. Financial trails that told stories money couldn't bury anymore. Lena spoke too. Calm, clear, unshakable. She said she didn't disappear because she wanted to. She disappeared because survival was the only option left. That line hit harder than anything I said. The fallout was brutal and necessary. Arrests, trials, headlines everywhere. My family name stopped meaning protection and started meaning exposure. Lena was legally declared alive. Our sons were recognized. The empire I inherited collapsed under the weight of its own lies. And here's the part people don't like hearing. Justice didn't feel like victory. It felt like exhaustion. Lena didn't run back into my arms. She didn't forgive me because I apologized on TV. She looked at me and said, "Love without protection is just noise." And she was right. I stepped down from my company, left the mansion, started showing up instead of speaking up, learned how to hold a bike steady while my son learned to ride, hands shaking, yelling, "Don't let go yet." Learned how to sit on the floor and read bedtime stories without checking my phone. Learned that trust isn't rebuilt with grand gestures but with consistency. Every day, no shortcuts. We're not a fairy tale. She didn't promise me love, she promised me a chance to be present. And I take that seriously because I've learned something the hard way. People underestimate you when they think they've already defined you. They mistake silence for weakness, survival for submission. But when the truth finally stands up, it doesn't need permission. So here's what I want to ask you. When someone finally fights back against the story written about them, do you believe they deserve a second chance, or do you think some damage can't be undone? Where do you draw the line between justice and forgiveness, between accountability and redemption? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them, all of them. And if you've ever been underestimated, erased, or told to stay quiet because it was easier for someone else, this story is for you. Subscribe if you want more real stories about power, truth, and what it actually takes to take your life back.